redeeming value at all, then it is no speech. It is just blabber. So thus, we have to interrogate the speech and the context before we condemn it. Now, having said all that, I'm now going to come to my final argument, which may render much of what I said quite irrelevant. We are, not only us in Singapore, indeed much of the world is now entering a new planet called cyberspace, where rules and regulations by the state and the exhortations by the good and the holy have very little currency. In the cyberspace, many people make their own rules and live by their own norms. Not all of them are bad, of course. I want to make that very clear. It is not the wild, wild west that the Singapore government tried to make it out to be. It is not. I study this every day. But they are beyond the pale of conventional wisdom and conventional values. So in this space, which all of you are part of, the modus operandi is not to take on everyone and to make everything right. The more prudent modus, I would suggest, is to change what you can, tolerate what you can't, and have the wisdom to tell the difference. No matter what governments do individually or even collectively, the quantity of bad speech is simply not going to disappear or even reduce. On the contrary, the assessment is that the quantity will increase because of the millions and millions of people who are entering the cyberspace every week. Today, there are 2.5 billion people, and there are several billions waiting to enter this world, and they will. It's not may or may not, it will happen. So when that happens, when there are so many billions of people are in this communication space, no state and no technology is going to control all of them the way we did in the past, the way we control television, newspapers, radio, the theater, the cinema. It just is not going to be possible. So governments that keep thinking that control is the default mechanism really ought to re-examine their position. The new default position, it seems to me, should be coping, not controlling. We have to learn to cope with whatever public communications we are faced with. We have to learn to navigate and negotiate with them. Or putting it another way, regulate what is regulable. Professor Walter Woon may have a very different view, but we'll wait for his wisdom. If we can't cope with one Ken Kwek, what are we going to do with 1,000 Ken Kweks? And there are going to be. And I'm not exaggerating. The new Ken Kweks will no longer require the Cathay organization to provide a screen for him. These Ken Kweks will reach your screen directly with no intermediaries. I wonder, the Singaporeans may remember, there was a film called A Singapore Rebel. It was about Said Zahari, done by Martin C. The government banned it. And, no, it was Said Zahari. Yeah. And it became far more popular than it ever would have been if it was just shown in the theater. So, if the government tries to catch these filmmakers like Ken Kwek in the future, they will simply go underground. You really can't catch them. The jurisdiction does not end, because nobody is going to repatriate you for political speech. Only you can turn them off. The nanny state can't do that. The consultative panel cannot do that. Only you can do that. So, in my view, the nanny state took a long time to delegate power to the community representatives, but unfortunately for them, this is too little, too late. Their time too is running out. The community representation model will be useless when nothing stands between the producer and the consumer. And increasingly, there are thousands, if not millions, of prosumers. These are people who produce and consume. There are no intermediaries. So this is the new world. Many of you all are already there, the younger generation. You cannot be protected the way my generation and Prof. Koh's generation was protected by the state. You need to be educated now how to cope and not how to close your eyes. Thank you.
Thank you, Arun. I don't know whether I made a mistake asking Arun to speak second. Perhaps he should have spoken last, right? Because he seemed to be saying that what Hannah and Walter are trying to do are futile. That we now live in a cyberspace where different rules apply. But Hannah, please don't be discouraged. Yeah. The third speaker is Hannah Taufiq Siraj. She got her first degree in political science at the University of Malaysia, where she topped her class. And she was talent spotted by Singapore. She was offered a scholarship to do a master's degree at our university. And she came here to study. And since she graduated, she's now working in Singapore with MUIS. She's very active in the civil society, and I'm very pleased that we have a young woman with us this evening. She's a member of the 24-member film consultative panel. Hannah, don't feel pressured. Huh? Don't feel pressured. I want you to share with us your own view, about porn masala, about the whole censorship process. Hannah, please.
First of all, thank you to Professor Tommy Koh and Dr. Margaret Tan for extending the invitation to me to participate in such a distinguished panel. I'm truly humbled and honored by the presence of the great man that I'm speaking on the stage with. And particularly thanks to Ken, who actually suggested my name as a sort of fresh, younger voice. But seeing this crowd, I'm not too sure whether I'm falling into that age group at this point. But thanks to him, and also I think thanks for his unwavering bravery for fighting for his film, and in doing that, actually upholding certain principles that are really good for us to discuss as a society moving forward. I got to know Ken actually by virtue of Facebook. We had mutual friends, and when the decision came out that the MDA had actually reversed its decision in allowing sex, violence and family values to actually be screened, we had mutual friends in which I actually shared my disappointment at such a decision. And that's where Ken came in, and Brima, our mutual friend Brima, came in, and I actually wrote something in support, saying that I said yes, out of the 24 that I had said yes to giving the green light to Ken's film. I do have to make a disclaimer though, even though I'm standing here in my capacity as a member of the FCP, the views here are personally my own. Due to the respect of the process, I'm unable to divulge certain details of the discussions. But what I can and what I will do is actually to provide some context to actually the timing of the film's release and sort of the emotionally charged responses that came afterwards in response to the racist dialogue or the racist dialogue found in Porn Masala. I will also give some of my personal reflections. I used to have a dream of becoming a film critic, so maybe this is my platform, that I can give my sort of a personal take on what I felt watching particularly Porn Masala, and why I believe certain people in our society reacted that way, and what does it mean for our community in Singapore moving forward in balancing artistic freedom and racial harmony. And while I think we don't have any concrete answers, even by tonight, I think the first step is actually to ask the right questions. Just to reiterate what has already been said, we were called for a meeting. We usually have meetings every other month, and we